It's Ricky Rich with Black Primacy with a quick question. Have you downloaded the Black Primacy app yet? If you haven't, don't worry about it. I just wanted to remind you that it is the number one way to find Black-owned businesses near you. Whether you're looking for food, fashion, or services, we've got you covered on this app. So download it now and start supporting Black-owned businesses in your area today. All right? Link in the description.
It's a voice rarely heard, the voice of a formerly enslaved person. Few know that in the decades following emancipation, interviews were done in an effort to preserve their stories. And in tonight's Prime Focus, you'll hear some of what they said as part of our partnership with the 10 Million Names Project. ABC's Alex Brachet brings us their stories in their words.
I want you to tell me how you got your name.
I got my name from President Jeff Davis. He was president of the Southern Confederation. He owned my grandfather and my father. My grandfather was a blacksmith, and my father had learned how to write a little bit in Richmond, Virginia before he brought him down there.
You're listening to the voice of a formerly enslaved American, a man by the name of George Johnson. This rare and historic audio interview was recorded in 1941, almost 80 years after Mr. Johnson gained his freedom. He and his family worked on a plantation in Virginia owned by Confederate leader Jefferson Davis, a staunch opponent of abolition. In the interview, Johnson recalls a day in the life as an enslaved person.
Did they drive the slaves down there in Davis's Bend very hard, or did they work them reasonable?
Reasonable. You know, Master Joe gave my Jeff another boy, and boy was chopping cotton. Boy didn't kill, but you gang, you understand? He come to hook the boy kill, you understand? That's the house of Master Joe boy. And that's what's the trouble, son. Say, Mr. Don't hook me, because I would kill the gang.
Audio tape interviews like this are striking and uncommon, but are actually part of a long legacy of Black families, communities, and institutions, including historically Black colleges and universities, that lead the way in collecting and preserving the oral histories of the formerly enslaved people in the 19th and 20th centuries. In the 1930s and beyond, technology allowed some of these interviews to be recorded as part of both federal and independent projects. The details are often difficult to hear, but they remind us this history happened not too long ago, with names, faces, and stories. Do we know roughly how many of these recordings exist?
The recordings are relatively rare, but the recordings come from a much larger and really important and in many ways unsung collecting effort that took place. In terms of audio technology, most of it was not recorded by audio because the technology didn't exist, or at least in any kind of widespread accessible way when most of those were conducted. So it's really just a handful of audio recordings we have.
In 1974, a woman named Celia Black, at the age of 114 years old and shortly before her death, recalled picking cotton in Texas as a child born into slavery.
I didn't have to pick cotton or nothing. I didn't do nothing but work in the field. Work in the field, oh goodness. Me my husband would go out, I'd west and pick cotton. Go out west every year. We've been this year going out there picking cotton.
One of the things that kind of struck me, you have an interview recorded in 1974. For some Black Americans, I mean, they're one generation removed from slavery.
In some ways, we think of slavery as ancient history. We think of it as something that happened a very long time ago to people we couldn't possibly have known. I was 6, 7 years old in 1974. So it's kind of amazing that we were alive at the same time. I was alive at the same time who was someone who had been born enslaved.
Alex Haley's Roots premiered on ABC just 3 years after this interview with Celia Black.
What's your name?
Kunta Kinte.
Alex Haley came into his work, Roots, what became Roots, really, through his grandmother's stories. So we're really talking about oftentimes great-grandparents at this point in the 70s.
Dr. Kendra Field, chief historian of the 10 Million Names Project, and Harvard professor Vincent Brown explained how these recordings illustrate an enormous preservation effort, the firsthand accounts shedding light on the darkest chapters in our American history, yet also revealing incredible African-American strength and survival.
Didn't you have some entertainment doing the dancing or anything?
Oh, I used to dance, but I don't do it now. No, I don't dance now. I try my best to serve my master. I'm trying my best to serve my Heavenly Father.
You hear these recordings. What were the emotions when you hear, the recollections of Celia Black?
First is just the miracle of her survival. It's just that I'm actually hearing this person who had been enslaved. That's kind of a miracle.
Celia Black was alive when Abraham Lincoln was president and lived to see the resignation of President Richard Nixon.
Oh, man.
You remember Abraham Lincoln, President?
I know where they gave him a good name. Oh, Abraham Lincoln. They thought Abraham was they thought, everybody thought Abraham was the best president there was.
In a similar effort to preserve this history and legacy, the 10 Million Names Project is a moonshot endeavor that aims to use the power of ancestry research to identify the names of the 10 million men, women, and children who were enslaved in the territory that became the United States. The goal is to put names and faces on this vital history, not only to give the enslaved the dignity they deserve, but to connect those living today with their family story. With the help of the 10 Million Names genealogist, we were able to find the direct descendants of Celia Black. Yeah. In Rhode Island, we met 68-year-old Curtis Royal, who spent time with her as a young man.
She's my great-grandmother from my mother's side of the family.
Do you remember any of the stories that she would tell?
She told us about how difficult it was, just being alive during that period. And of course, she would tell us a story about the big ox that they had two of them, and how her father would set her right on the head of the ox, and she would just hold on with the horns. So those are, as a boy, those are fascinating. You say, wow.
My grandfather had some big old oxen. He had one with a big wide horn. Oh, it looked like a house. Wide horns, and I used to sit up there and clean them horns. And then his name was Coley. And the other one was named Left.
Was it ever difficult to talk about slavery?
Yes, and I think what made it so difficult is just realizing, how emotional it was and what they went through. You try to put yourself into their physical being and to understand what they went through, and it's scary.
You've heard the recording
Yes.
of your great-grandmother
Yes.
in 1974.
It was very challenging for me to hear when they asked her the question about what it was like working in the fields, the heat in Texas, the humidity, and, sometimes 105, 110 degrees. And I just can't fathom waking up, sun up to sundown, working in the fields. How do they do it? How did they do it?
You learn about slavery in America, and I think especially being a Black American, the initial emotion is anger.
There's the history of slavery as an institution, which was all about oppressing people. And that's a very dark history that I think should make us angry. But then there's an African-American history of survival through and beyond that institution. And that's kind of amazing. To hear people, accepting that I lived this life, it was incredibly hard, and I'm still here. And that I've survived, and I've got children, and I've passed on some kind of legacy.
How does who's conducting these interviews and how they're conducting these interviews, how does that matter?
Oh, I mean, it's enormously important. For the WPA interviews in general, the vast majority are white interviewers. Some are the children of the former slave owners, in fact, that are interviewing a former slave, right, of that same family.
But everywhere, slavery was a system for allocating status. And slaves and ex-slaves were supposed to be low-status people. And so when they were talking to people who they perceived to be of higher status, they had to be very careful about what they said, right? Because those people could determine their fate.
While many of the audio recordings don't reflect it, slaves were frequently subjected to heinous forms of abuse, including beatings, sexual assault, and forms of torture. The historic 10 Million Names Project, in which ABC News is the exclusive media partner, is an ancestry database that the public can access, add information to, and use as a research tool. And because so little information about enslaved people was officially documented, amassing this data is a huge task.
We encourage anyone that wants to get involved to reach out, to go to the website, and to be part of that project.
Who stands the most to gain from hearing these? I mean, is it Black folk? Is it younger Black folk? Is it white America? Is it Americans as a whole?
If we're going to understand anything about freedom, then we're going to have to understand the people who were denied that freedom.
I mean,
While very few of us will have the opportunity of hearing our ancestors' voices on tape, the 10 Million Names Project hopes that one day all Black Americans will have the chance to know their ancestors' names and stories the way that Curtis knows Celia.
You had the chance to know your great-grandmother.
Yes.
How powerful is it being able to connect that dot?
It's extremely powerful. You got to hear it from her directly. Not something that was passed on, but to hear it directly from her pain.
All right, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please check out the other content that we have on this channel. But before you go, I wanted to remind you again not to forget to check out the Black Primacy app. It is the best way to connect with Black-owned businesses near you. They need your support. We need your support. Link in the description.